All right, guys. So we're going to watch and kind of talk about this Carrack versus Odyssey video. It's from 16 hours ago as a billionaire ninjas. I will say he made a pretty quality video. I'm not really a video editor or maker, so we'll see. He's basically saying that the Odyssey is better than the Carrack at this point, and I'm going to try and talk about a few things as he goes through the video.
Exploration gameplay isn't even in the game yet, and people are picking sides like a square dance is about to happen. I'm here to tell you that either both these ships, the Carrack and the Odyssey, are awesome, or neither of them will be. Welcome to our new series, Star Citizen Wars, where we compare and contrast ships, careers, roles, vehicles, and pretty much anything else that exists in the verse. This playlist settles the debate, destroys the debate, changes the debate paradigm, or creates a new debate. Let's start with what you all don't want to hear. When it comes to exploration, the Misk Odyssey is better at it than the Carrack. So as far as exploration, it really is the Carrack killer.
Exploration, it's better than the Carrack.
However, and this is a big however, that doesn't necessarily mean what you might think it means. First, here's 3 reasons why the Odyssey is a better exploration ship. The biggest reason is it can mine and refine gas and quantanium indefinitely, allowing you to go as far as your.
I would say it can mine and refine quantanium at least initially. Um, we don't really know how refineries and mining is going to work. From what we've seen on CIG's stuff over the Odyssey, it has basic mining capabilities. So it might not be able to scan or identify rocks as well. We don't really know exactly what the extent of its mining capabilities are. But it also means that this ship is going to be putting itself into harm's way. Mining asteroid fields, you have the potential of the asteroids exploding, damaging your ship. Managing the refinery on board as well. We've seen that they've talked about if you mess up your refineries, how they can explode or do other kinds of damage to your ship. So you're going to have internally something that you have to micromanage while you're doing refining. Power signature wise, the ship might put off more signature and be easier to find if it's refining and stuff as well as taking power away from other systems. We don't know how much power it's going to take from the ship to actually refine, so it could make your shields and your guns and everything kind of less potent, and also have one of your crew members trying to micromanage a refinery mid-fight, um, if you have that. So it's potentially also a negative with a positive. The other thing is, like, if there is structural damage to this and your mining laser gets damaged to where you can't use it anymore, then you've basically lost that functionality altogether. And that's the big thing I would add for the Carrack and the Odyssey is just structural repair. I think it's one of the biggest key elements of any ship in the game when you come to long-term like use, because if your ship takes structural damage and that damage negates its ability to do its job, that's the part where a lot of ships get like pushed out. Like take the Aurora for an example, like versus like a starting fighter ship. If the fighter ship loses its wing, it's not going to be able to do atmospheric flight. Really, you have to go back for repairs at some point. Um, so the Odyssey, we don't know exactly what structural repair it might need, but the Carrack so far can only lose its wing armor, its turrets, and that's about it. The Odyssey, we don't know if these engines can be damaged, and we don't know if the mining tools and stuff can be damaged to a point where they can't be hand repaired.
food, water, and parts last you in the verse. The Starfarer, the ship meant to literally be a gas miner.
This is the next thing he says. It can last as long as your food, water, and parts last in the verse, which is a big one. If we're going from the Misk lineup and we take the Starfarer for example, the Starfarer was it's a fuel ship, but they had to make the Gemini, which has higher armor capabilities with less cargo space, at least in the lore or whatever, which tells me that Misk ship's armor isn't really on par with other ships armor wise, which I guess is why a lot of Misk ships have stronger shields, but they're probably going to be a lot more vulnerable to like ballistics, for example. Um, you know, and then when it comes to even like the cargo hangar bay and stuff, the ships that you bring with you in this thing, like you can bring a fighter, but if your fighter loses its wings, it loses a lot of ability, and that whole hangar bay basically becomes useless. Where if you take something like a Vulcan or trying to think of something, I don't know, like an Endeavor, something along those lines, like something that has engines that are harder to destroy, has some redundancy, things that don't really need structural repair, like even like shuttle pods. But the Carrack also has the repair bay to repair components and armor that you will be wearing, which would probably be the next big part. Is if you're in a hostile environment or a planet with bad conditions, you probably want armor and shielding, as well as the ability to not put your own equipment in harm's way, which the Carrack has drones and stuff for. So take Pyro for example. The drones will be able to go outside of your ship if you can't, and do some things before like a solar flare hits, so you don't have to risk your own equipment getting damaged. And then you just power off your ship, you power off your drones, pack everything up. So your overall equipment's probably going to last longer on the Carrack, unless the Odyssey comes with something that can repair as well.
Can't even do that. Neither can the Carrack. Now, don't worry, all the things the Carrack can do are coming as well, so hold your horses. Ahem! Not quite sure what happened there. You can go further into the void with this ship, and after all, exploration is really about how far you can go at its core. What's that saying? New civilization. Boldly go where no man has gone.
How far you can go and how much you can find, I would say. It's also a capital class ship, so it's going to be able to go pretty far, but we don't know where it's going to be able to go necessarily. Um, if all the capital jump points are able to go to all the same areas, this could be good. Also, the like most ships have fuel scoops, so depending on how often you actually use quantum travel while you're exploring, the ranges might not be that big of a deal. For an example, like they plan on doing the quantum skipping at some point, so you can kind of dash around. That's good. But if you're looking for things out in the universe and you don't necessarily care how far out you are, then just having the scanners could be good. And then you can just use your fuel scoops to refill your hydrogen. Just use your quantanium to travel back, you know, when you need to escape or something along those lines. And then, like, while you're exploring, kind of the other point I would make is that if you're in a part of the universe that you've never been before, you probably won't have all of the jump point icons. So you might be able to quantum skip, but you won't have icons to really tell you where to go besides maybe the major planets. So I don't really know how useful like the quantanium is going to be exactly until we get all of the systems in, I would think.
The second biggest reason is offense and defense. The Odyssey has a capital shield generator and 3 size 5 remote turrets. Not to mention, it has 4 size 3 missile racks. The
Capital shield generators, 3 size 5 turrets, missile racks. The power supply on this ship depending on if you're doing, refining or any of that, I think is going to be kind of taxing on, like, let's say that the power plant has a certain amount of durability. Well, you're running capital class components on this ship plus mining lasers and refining equipment. So I would assume that you're going to use more durability out of your power plant long term, maybe, if there's any sort of degradation there. Um, size 5 weapons are good. The Odyssey has two front-facing size 5s, I think, and one rear-facing size 5. So it has a lot of forward-facing firepower on a bigger ship. I don't really know how useful that is. So like if you're in front of it, it's probably going to do some damage. If you're behind it, it probably won't be that bad. Missile-wise, missiles are good, but I mean, there's a limited amount of missiles, so you'd have to decide when you use them, and then you'd need to restock at some point. So I don't know if the missiles necessarily matter for the most part. The capital class shields as well, like if you consider ballistics in general, like in a 1v1 fight, the Odyssey might be able to beat the Carrack. I don't know. But the Carrack has better firing angles, better coverage for both ground and space combat. One of the biggest things with the Carrack is that it's a fairly capable ground-based vessel in general. So if you need to land an exploration force on the ground, you can do that. You can drop multiple vehicles very quickly. You have the durability to last on a planet if something goes wrong. And then if you're doing like an attack operation, for an example, you could load like 6 Ursa rovers and a bunch of troops on there if you had to land on the ground and this deploy them instantaneously. So I mean, there's a lot of flexibility with the Carrack in that kind of position. But yeah,
Carrack has 4 size 4s, no missiles, and 2 large shields. Mind you, shields don't stack, as I
two large shields, but um, is it still two large shields? The difference between so it take like three large shields or whatever to equal like one capital. I mean, so sadly, I guess we don't have three large shields on the Carrack. I don't keep up with all of that, but the one benefit that would be for large components compared to a capital component is that they're probably going to be easier to find in the universe. So if you needed to replace a part, it's going to be easier for me to find like, a Starfarer or another large ship potentially than it is for me to go and find and fight a capital ship. Because if you're looking for replacement parts, capital components, I believe, take a shipyard to repair and like replace. So as soon as your capital components are out on the Odyssey, you're basically dead in the water, from what I can gather. Large components, I don't know if they require external um, repair operations for that, but having two shield generators, from what I understand, if you're going up against something like a uh, what are they called? Basically, those EM weapons, things that shut down your systems, you're able to alternate your shields, turn one off, turn one on, and then whenever your shields get shut down, you flip on the other shield generator and it powers up and it negates the effect. From what I understand, that's part of the gameplay when it comes to components and engineering. So the Odyssey's probably going to be more manageable for a very small crew, but or like for an equal crew, it's going to be more of the casual, leave everything running, just get on the guns and try to do stuff. The Carrack's going to be more micromanaging probably.
used to think. They go into a combined shield pool, which averages their stats together. That means the Odyssey can keep up way longer than the Carrack can. The Odyssey can stand and fight light ships with those missiles and medium to large ships with those size 5s.
Odyssey can stay in the fight longer against energy-based weapons. We don't know how it's going to handle versus ballistics compared to the Carrack. And depending on what weapons the NPCs use between ballistics or lasers, it might be better to have an all-around general package of decent shields and strong armor compared to just shields. Fighting light fighters with the missiles and then fighting bigger ships with the size fives, I would say debatable because depending on where the missiles are, if they're all just forward facing missiles, light fighters are going to be able to flank and get behind you. And the Odyssey has a big blind spot in the back end of it. So the missiles only really matter if they connect and if the fighters can't close distance on you. The size 5 guns taking down bigger ships, potentially, but you still run into the same arc fire issues. You're looking at a bigger ship in general. A capital class, big ship with 3 size 5s, and like say you go against like a Corsair or an Andromeda, they're still going to be able to get behind you like a fighter and hit you with more guns. So if you don't take them out before they get to you, then you're going to have problems. And with this ship, if you're trying to run away, you're only going to have like that one back end turret. And as soon as like turrets get taken out in the game, all it means is one of those ships destroy that back turret, and then you're completely defenseless versus 90% of your ship is just vulnerable. And this also goes into structural repair. Like, yes, even if the Odyssey doesn't have components that can be destroyed on the ship and require structural repair, I'm sure turrets are probably going to have the same issues. The Carrack's turrets are probably going to have the same issues as any turret in the game, but each of those turrets are able to shoot forward and backwards. There's at least 3 turrets that can shoot from every side compared to the Odyssey only having the one. So even if you try to run in this ship, you're kind of putting yourself in a bad situation.
The Carrack might be able to last with a few fighters because it has those retractable bridge shields. But let's say you can't fight and you need to run because it's two Redeemers attacking you. The Odyssey can not only run further, but its shields will hold up while you're shifting from SCM to nav mode. Once master mode.
Run farther from Redeemers, and the shields will hold up when going from SCM to nav mode. I don't really know the difference between, yeah, as far as I knew, like when you go into nav mode, you lose your shields. So he's saying, I guess the capital class shields last longer while entering nav mode, which, I mean, if they do, I guess that's good. But if you're getting chased by 2 Redeemers and they're smacking you in the hind end, uh, if those shields are down at all and they're hitting you with, like with EM weapons, which from what we've seen so far, um, I don't know if it's changing, but EM weapons are supposed to keep you from being able to quantum, so they could easily do that. The Redeemers also have, like, one Redeemer basically has the same amount of firepower as the Odyssey with a much smaller ship, 2 size 5 turrets, plus, missiles and everything else. So you're talking about 2 Redeemers. I mean, that's a decent package to deal with.
Come online anyway for the larger ships. That's before we talk about the fact that you can fit an Ares in the hangar to take on large ships. Which brings me to the third reason the Carrack is not as good at exploration as the Odyssey. What everyone seems to be missing, the Odyssey has a tractor beam. We're seeing how
Tractor beam. I don't know where the tractor beam is on the Odyssey. He talks about bringing Ares. You could bring an Ares with the Odyssey for sure, but what benefits does it necessarily give you? I mean, it gives you like a big gun, like another size 5 or something, right? But if you're under attack, launching a ship out of this top hangar, it could get destroyed or damaged. Potentially, it would be a very useful thing to have, but if you send your Ares out against those 2 Redeemers, and the Redeemers manage to destroy like its wings or anything like that, you essentially lose the function of that ship when you put it back in this hangar, because you're not going to be able to structurally repair that compared to like what would be a solid ship. I really don't know what would be a solid ship in this case. You'd probably like pretty much most of the ships that would fit in here have problems. It's hard to say, but tractor beam, depending on where it is on this ship, it could be useful, it could not. I would expect it to be somewhere around this hangar or the back area, but we'll have to see. The one thing about this hangar that I say that I kind of like is basically if you were going to use this for like cargo or like pirate stuff, all you really have to do is like have your ground vehicle here in the back, use the Odyssey to attack things up front, and then as soon as it's done, you like EVA out, you grab the stuff and you toss it down here into this bay and then close the door, and then you go from here, transport it. So I mean, this right here is potentially one massive cargo bay. And I don't think anyone's thinking about that with the Odyssey, but this is a lot of cargo if you're going to randomly fill this up with cargo boxes, you know? A lot of cargo space. So, it's kind of interesting.
How important these are now in game as of 3.22. Being able to move heavy things, which handheld tractor beams can't do, and do so without exiting the ship is going to be extremely useful for when you find things out in space and need to move them into cargo or just move them out of your way. Ask anyone who plays Star Citizen as of 3.22. Tractor beams are by far one of the best features implemented into the game yet. And here's a bonus reason. The minimum crew for the Carrack is 4. The minimum crew for the Odyssey is 1, meaning the pilot can control the turrets and missiles. In the
Minimum crew of 4 compared to 1. I'm not sure that you want to pilot a capital ship with one player. Like, even if you take a ship like the Liberator, has a 1 to 2 crew size, but it still has one remote, like one turret on the other side and the engineer area. So you'd probably want 2 to 3 on that ship. This one, I mean, if all of the turrets are slave to the pilot, that makes turret coverage in this thing a lot worse than what it would be otherwise. And then if it's not, you're going to have a bigger crew requirement for this capital ship. And then if you're piloting this with one person and you're like refining something and you get attacked, then I don't know what you're going to be able to do to stop the refinery from exploding while you make your way to the front and engage.
the Odyssey, which is not possible in the Carrack. The Odyssey is basically a capital class solo ship. Now, will each ship be better with crew? Absolutely. But only one of them can be operated solo. Truly operated solo. Now let's talk about what the Carrack has that the Odyssey does not. Let's start with the obvious. Repair drones. Having drones that can repair your ship without exiting the ship is going to be one of the Carrack's best features. Also, these might end up being able to be replaced with different types of drones like refuel and rearm drones. Now that's unconfirmed, but the Odyssey has 0 drones. The Carrack also has modularity swaps for its cargo bays, on top of carrying 81% more cargo than the Odyssey. Now,
Odyssey does have a lot of cargo space. It's just not dedicated cargo space. The Carrack having abilities to the Carrack has more stuff to keep its crew safe, I would say. Like you don't need to leave the Carrack for a lot of things in general. So like you don't have to explore a derelict or anything with a player. You can use a drone. You don't have to repair things with a player. You could repair it with a drone. You wouldn't have to salvage things like with a player. You could do it with a drone. But the difference with the Carrack's cargo bay is, or the drone bay is that they've said that although drones may be able to be swapped out, the actual like components that operate the drones inside are kind of fixed to the ship. So like the Vulcan has tanks with repair material that you can use with repair drones. The Carrack might not be able to actually use repair drones in that way. It might be able to use storages of hand hand salvage brought into the drone bay and then like manually fill the drones up with hand salvage and then repair. But I don't know if it's going to be able to actually just go and repair instantaneously if they decide to allow you to swap them in the first place. I would think that they would have the ability to swap them in the first place. It would be the ideal situation because then like with a crew of 4 you could have, probably 2 survey drones, 2 repair drones, and then 2 medical drones, and then like 2 optional maybe. The medical drones would be probably really good to have just to like pull in crew that are from the outside to the inside. If they're like injured or if you just need to get them inside the ship really quick, you might be able to send out those medical drones, grab your guys, and then drag them back into the Carrack really quickly. That would be pretty nice, but we'll have to see.
Now, when you swap the cargo bays, obviously you lose that cargo. But regardless of what the modularity ends up being, the Odyssey does not have any modularity. Once we have details, we can say how much this feature will affect the distance between the Odyssey and the Carrack, but you can imagine swapping that cargo for a science or research bay. The Carrack also has a cartography deck, which gives it a buff to its ability to chart.
The Carrack having modular cargo pods as well allow it to be better suited for ground operations. Um, so if you have like a medical bay or a living space or something that produces ozone, I could see the Carrack being able to drop down on a planet, detach those cargo pods as like little hab buildings or whatever, and then going and getting more cargo pods, like basically like building a base without having base building functions. It's just, like little temporary military outpost type things, but we'll have to see on that one.
Jump points and scan, which is extremely important for an exploration ship. The Odyssey does not have a dedicated deck, nor does it have a cartography room. Oddly enough, the Odyssey has one more computer than the Carrack. Not sure what that means yet though. Let's give a bonus reason to the Carrack. Just to be fair, we have no idea what the armor class of the Odyssey will be, but the Carrack was made as a military ship and has that retractable bridge shield. Right now, the Carrack has the 14th best hull HP in the game, so my guess is it will have better armor. But since that is a guess, I'll say the real bonus reason is it comes with both an Ursa and a C8. That makes it a heck of a value on pro.
Said the Carrack has the 14th highest HP pool, but it also only has like 3 ship parts, which means not only would it be high HP, but it's high part HP, which is interesting.
Price and utility. The Odyssey does not come with any ships or vehicles. Now that we know the unique features on each, let me tell you what you came to hear. The Carrack will and is going to be a better multiple role ship. And like I said before, the Odyssey is a better exploration ship. The Carrack is for the person who wants to explore but is more interested in the data and research part of exploration rather than deep space and the
To infinity and beyond.
portion of exploration. Carrack owners rejoice in your ability to sell that jump point, nav point, and cartography data. The Q&A made a lot of Carrack owners feel safe and secure, but sounded like a bummer to a few people that upgraded from the Carrack when we talk about the Odyssey Q&A. Let me tell you 2 reasons why that shouldn't be the case. At least not yet. There were 2 major parts of the Q&A that took folks down. Finding out that it's not currently planned for the refinery to take mineable material from other ships, and that the Odyssey could not refuel ships other than those parked in its hangar. But, and this is an indeedly large, nicely shaped but, notice that I said not currently planned for the refinery to take mineable material. That doesn't mean it won't have the ability when it finally gets made. Even if not, then bring an expanse with you in the hangar when you want to go support a mining operation. As far
If it doesn't have the ability to do mineable rocks and you bring in Expanse, I don't know if the Expanse makes fuel. Like, it's going to be able to refine materials and rocks, but you're going to need ways to fill up those bags, put the bags on the Expanse, then turn that into fuel, I guess, if it's able to make fuel, and then be able to put that in your ship. But you're also putting, more refineries on board your Odyssey, which is probably more dangerous if something goes wrong. I don't know. But if the Expanse is able to make fuel, then that also goes with the Carrack because you could, like, for me, my fleet, the Carrack and the Liberator are the main two. So I could just put an Expanse on the Liberator, use it to produce fuel, and then put it in the Carrack and stuff. But if you just take a Carrack and then you get a Starfarer Gemini or whatever, then that solves pretty much all your fuel problems as long as you can find areas to get fuel, which the Carrack is good at, or should be good at. If you take an Odyssey, then you're gonna need a Vulcan for repair stuff, unless you're gonna do hand repair. But you're still not gonna be able to do structural repair. Um, you're not gonna be able to do component repairs or anything like that. So it's kind of hard to say what ship you would bring with the Odyssey to complement it in that way.
As far as refueling other ships, I first ask, why do you need that? I have barely seen anyone use a Starfarer for refueling rather than just going to a base. And no other ship you bring with you will be able to travel as far as you anyway, because it'll run out of Quantanium or something. That being said, when we get our first small refueling ship, you'll be able to easily fit that into this Odyssey hangar as well. On top of that, my guess is that hangar size will actually grow a little bit because it's the same size as the Polaris hangar, which has also grown because of a rework. My major gripe with the Odyssey vs. Carrack is that mail slot for the Odyssey. We better have an observation capable room in that Odyssey, or
He wants an observation capable room on a MISC ship. Pretty much every MISC ship has a tiny window. Um, I'm not sure if that would be a thing at all. The one benefit to having a tiny window is that it's a tiny window, so I mean that's a plus. That's probably the biggest point that I could make between the Carrack and the Odyssey. Like ships like the Carrack, like the Constellations, etc. The glass on the front seems to be a very big weak point. So none of those ships I would want to point the glass towards an enemy. So the Carrack, I don't want to point my cockpit at an enemy and rush into them because if they destroy that glass, kind of a problem. Even if they put a ballistic shield on the front of the Carrack, I don't know if it's going to be good enough. So like the Misk and the other like ships like that having the small window makes it less likely for like it probably just gives it more HP in general. So I would probably prefer to have a smaller window than a bigger window. I don't have any real benefits of using a big window on a ship when I have third person view. So not really that big of a deal to me.
I will be highly upset, CIG. John Crew, this is directly aimed at you. Stop trying to make mail slot happen. It's not going to happen.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Okay, I'm joking. But like, for real, whoever is responsible for that, please stop. I haven't met a single person that wants less pilot visibility, especially in a ship made to explore the stars. Lastly, let's talk about why we need both the Carrack and the Odyssey to succeed. At its core, I think exploration
Is the Odyssey meant to explore the stars though? It's an expedition ship, as far as I know, which would be like if we go from the words expedition and exploration, if I think exploration, I'm thinking finding something you've never seen before. If I'm thinking expedition, I'm thinking traveling to a faraway place we already know. So the Carrack would go out and find the cool thing, and then the Odyssey would hear about the cool thing and then want to go there and have the ability to go there without needing any support. I think that's probably the best comparisons I can give with these ships. Like the Carrack is going to be the one exploring and finding the thing. The Odyssey is going to be the one that comes after. Like it's going to be capable of exploring, but I don't think it's going to be the exploration ship. It's going to be the mobile base, land on a planet or in an area around a place and stay out for a long period of time. In that sense. So like for me, like I would probably, depending on how many would fit, I'd probably take the Odyssey and then fill it full of like Auroras. You have a mobile base. I mean, we know an Aurora can fit in the Carrack hangar, and the Carrack hangar can fit a PCs. So one Aurora is probably like 1.5 PCs or something, 2 PCs in size. So you could probably get like 2 Auroras or something in this ship. So I mean, that's probably something I would look into, is just like putting Auroras on this Odyssey, and then you have extra beds, extra like ship travel, stuff along that line.
Gameplay will become the center of the game. It's what will make all ships have a valid purpose in the game. When fuel begins to really matter, when there are hundreds of jump points, when there are uncharted points in space with enemies you've never faced, every ship in the game will need information on who, what, where, when, why, and how.
You have an account with us?
And how?
If it's not fun to chart jump points and the Carrack is too limited in its ability to go far into space, then less people will chart and the game will suffer for it. If the Odyssey can do nothing except go far, instead of buying the ship, people will just wait until someone charts it. A space station is built with refueling capabilities, and then they'll go after the charting is done rather than buy an Odyssey.
That depends, because with how exploration is said to work, the Carrack or whatever would find the point of interest and sell it or tell people about it. You're not going to have time for them to build a space station. Like if it's like a planet or something or a jump point, then yeah, maybe you can wait until a space station is there and then go to the planet. But if you're finding an interesting point of interest in space, then the Carrack would get it, travel back, the Odyssey would buy it or whatever, learn about it, and then the Odyssey would have the ability to go from wherever it is to wherever that thing is and do the thing. So if you're at any other ship, so the Carrack comes back, you sell that information to a what's a bigger ship? I don't know, a Polaris or something. Well, that Polaris is going to have to, figure out how it's going to do fuel, figure out what vehicles and stuff it's going to take. Doesn't have the ability to produce its own ozone or food or water, and it's going to have to try and figure out how to get all the way to that location, do the thing, and then come back. Whereas the Odyssey is going to be able to go all the way to that location, do the thing, and then stay there. Hear back from the Carrack, like, oh, we found another big thing right here. It's going to be able to go from that, boop, right over to the Carrack, boop, and you're done. Now, if you can put a Vulcan in the back of the Odyssey, I could honestly see the Odyssey and the Carrack working very well together. Like the Odyssey would basically be, I would say, a poor man's endeavor, but I would say probably a more flexible endeavor. If the Odyssey is able to mine its own fuel, put it into a Vulcan that's in the back, and then the Vulcan can refuel the Carrack, that's a self-contained system. Um, you'd also have more turrets than a Starfarer and an additional hangar bay for ships. So I think they could potentially pair really well together. But the Starfarer can hold. I don't know. It's kind of confusing because the Odyssey might be able to only support its own crew with its oxygen and its water and stuff, where the Starfarer might be able to produce it from gas and then refill ships with it, like collect water, collect oxygen. Kind of hard to say, but it can also carry liquid foods potentially, which you could use on a military ship, I'm sure. Compared to an Odyssey, I don't know if an Odyssey would be able to manage that many people.
Vision for both ships' primary purpose is that the Odyssey is the tip of the spear that charts the long-range path for the Carrack so that the Carrack will know where to stop for fuel when it goes out to map. The extra computer on the Odyssey is to store data on where the refuel points and other major points of interest are. The Carrack then comes out and uses its superior scanning cartography tech to get the more detailed and accurate information that the Odyssey may have missed on its run. Then they rinse and repeat.
I think he might have that backwards, though. I don't think the Odyssey is the tip of the spear. I think the Carrack is the tip of the spear. Why would you send a civilian class vessel into unknown, uncharted space to fight or handle everything that's out there and then send a military type vessel to do the rest? Like, the extra computer on the MISC is probably for like AI gun blades and stuff, I would assume. It's probably for slaving turrets for the pilot. That would be my assumption. Like,
Both ships need to be fun to fly and fun to operate, or a large piece of exploration gameplay will fail. So instead of arguing about which ship is better, we need to focus more on what the intended purpose of each ship is and why we want them both to succeed, even if the Odyssey is the obvious and clear winner in the ship battle. Anyway, what do you think? Did I miss anything? Which one do you own and why? Am I bananas, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, or am I making some sense? Let me know in the comments below. That's it.
I don't know. The other thing is like if you go with an Odyssey, Odyssey's like $700 plus a Vulcan. You're already looking at $1,000 if you buy it out of game. Like an Odyssey, $700. Carrack, it's like $500 or $600 right now. Now, if you take the Carrack and you add on a Starfarer, you're looking at about $1,000. If you take the Odyssey and then you put in a fighter, you're looking at about $1,000. I guess the real question between the two would be, can the Odyssey supply O2 and food for multiple ships? If they can, then it's a very good pairing with the Carrack. If it can't, then there's not really any room for it with the Carrack because the Starfarer can do a similar job while carrying food and water for the Carrack. I don't know. I guess we'll see when the game comes out with the Odyssey, but I think the Odyssey's a nice ship. It's going to be good for voyages. Is how I'm looking at it. Like it's not like a luxury touring ship, but I think the Odyssey is like if you were going to send a colony, like some people to colonize a planet, you would probably send an Odyssey. But if you're going to send people to find like hostile alien worlds or find some crazy stuff out in space, you'd probably send a Carrack. That's how I'm looking at it, essentially. Like the Carrack is going to be better for just combat. It's going to be better for finding and running and being able to just do its thing. It's going to be better capable of deploying a ground attack force and a bigger fleet if it had to. The Odyssey, you're going to load up on that thing and you're going to fly across space. And then within a few generations of your descendants, you're going to find your planet, land on it, and have all your samples and your O2 and your water and everything else. Like the Odyssey is going to be basically a base in a ship, a base in a ship that can land on a planet. Whereas like the Endeavor is a potentially a base on a space station with a detachable ship. The Odyssey is going to be landing on the planet and doing whatever it wants to do for as long as it needs to do it on the planet. So in the future, for example, say there's a planet that is not hospitable for players. You can't like breathe the air, there's no food or water or anything like that. The Carrack is going to be able to find and explore, then find the planet. It could potentially land there, and it's going to be able to do some things, scout out some points, all of that exploration wise. Then the Odyssey is going to be the ship that goes there, lands, and is able to stay for a very long time, as long as it doesn't take a lot of damage. So I don't think the Odyssey is going to want to just land on a planet that a Carrack or some sort of ship hasn't scouted out and said, hey, there isn't like a ton of deadly stuff on this planet right now. That's where I'm really seeing these things operating. But y'all guys have a good one. That's just a review of this, and we'll see what happens.